be Councilman Rowley. Would you be willing?
I'm a
Have
poor
that sparkle
substitute
in
for
his
Pastor
eyes.
Pete. But
I know.
I'll do what I can do.
Thank you.
Our Father in heaven, we're thankful this evening to be met together as a community to discuss the concerns and the needs of the people that live in this beautiful city. We thank thee for this opportunity and pray that tonight, that as we make our deliberations, that we can have understanding and that we'll be able to come to conclusions that will be beneficial for all those who live here. We pray tonight for the well-being of our public safety officers, our fire and policemen and women, and ask for their continued protection. And we say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you for filling in. We appreciate that. Now we will have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilman Adams.
All rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we will now move on to our agenda order approval. We'd like to ask that item number 11 be moved up so it is under council business. And other than that, are there any other changes the council would like? And if not, can I get a motion with that change added?
Is 5 going to be deferred now to?
Well, so on 5, we've published the public hearing for tonight.
Oh, okay.
So we want to open and hold the public hearing, but delay the vote.
Okay. Just trying to understand that.
Okay. So,
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda with the changes mentioned.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, then we'll now move on to council business. If there are any other items of council business, then we'll move to that discussion.
I still have a nagging concern from years ago, and that's the question of if by chance a troublesome cat were to be in my yard and he fell into a trap, does the animal control pick those up or do I have to deliver?
You can pick those up.
Okay. That solves the problem. It really is a troublesome cat. It's not like,
I'm glad that we got that resolved.
Town I was in the other day, they had a zebra wandering around in the street, so it's a whole different thing.
Is that an approved trap or is that a self-made?
It is an approved trap. I once caught Councilman Cousins in it.
Okay, and with that, we're going to move on. Is there any other?
Did I hear rumor that there's a meeting with the water quality folks?
They'll be here the 24th.
24th?
Yeah.
Whichever.
Did we
That,
tell you the 17th?
I thought it was the 25th, but
it's
Whatever the Wednesday
that
is.
council meeting. So they're going to come to our council meeting.
oh, to this meeting.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's
So-
24th.
So everyone will be, it will be a meeting that you'll be at. Anyways, hopefully. Yeah.
Got to go to some law school graduation. It's like the low point of my night.
No kidding. Hang out with
To
that many
be-
attorneys.
They'll be in purple, so good luck with that. All right, is there other council business?
Now a question.
Yes.
Did you have something besides the,
Yeah, but go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, is there some activity on the recycle center down there? I've seen people down there and wondered if we're finally getting a resolution.
So here's what I know. 3 or 4 weeks ago, representatives from the state came down. It's the solid waste guys that handle this type of material. We asked them to come down and look at it and provide any help they can provide. They went in and evaluated what's out there. In a nutshell, they sent us a letter and they sent it to the owner of the property as well. And the letter says there's a bunch of glass material out there. which would be like pop bottles and beer bottles and stuff like that. If the city's willing, we can let them put it in the Bullock pit, that glass. There's a whole bunch of glass material out there that is classified as hazardous waste. It's the monitors and electronic stuff. And they need to figure out a plan to dispose of that. The letter contained some possible disposal sites that they could work with to dispose of it. But it sounds a little bit costly. There's some tenants out there now. They're trying to lease the property and get some revenue flowing from the property. And the tenants are trying to, I can't remember what kind of business they were trying to do. That's as much as I know off the top of my head.
Okay, thanks. I was hoping it was moving. And then I wanted to ask, I noticed Washington County is having a water week this week where they have some like water education stuff. Has Iron County ever
We
considered
do
doing
that
that?
every year. Maybe it's just for fourth graders.
We have a water fair with fourth graders to teach them about water conservation. We just had it. And then we also do one in the park too, each year.
Mhm.
To teach the public about
Okay.
water conservation.
That's where they play water games.
Oh,
They
yeah,
have,
waste a bunch of water.
It lands on the grass though, I guess.
They still have to water the grass.
Okay,
But they have vendors come and display smart controllers and stuff for homes. It senses the moisture in your content in your grass, or it hooks up to a weather station where it says if there's or if it's raining outside, it won't come on. They educate us all the time. So we do 12
Okay.
things each year.
all right, thanks.
And then on water, we're pretty much ready out west with our quick spot recharge project. We're still waiting for the weir, which is the metal gate. Everything else is done. I think it's backfilled. I don't know if Public Works hauled, they're not going to haul rock, but are we not going to sell them, or are they just going to buy that from Sunrock now, Paul?
Paul called me this afternoon. Paul Monroe called and said, do you guys have rock? Could you sell us some? We talked a little bit about what we think the value is, and he said he'd get back to me. But we told him we can't haul it. If hauling it's the issue, our guys can't do that.
But we're still waiting for the weir. It was promised to be shipped 2 weeks ago, and they called yesterday and they said it's going to be another 2 weeks. So we're disappointed in that. But when it gets here, that project will be ready to go. So I don't know if we'll have a whole lot of water going out there by the time we get it done. We'll see. I'm sure there'll be some. There'll be some storm water that goes out there and different things, and some excess that might end up out there that we can recharge this year with. I wanted to take a few minutes. I hope you'll bear with me. I had a talk with Auditor Dougal this week, and I read through back in January of this year.
Just really quick, this is our discussion
On
on participation of the Utah League of Cities and Towns.
Yes,
Just so for
yes, thank you.
minutes and video and all that. Okay.
There was an audit that came out January 19th of 2017, and there was a second audit that came out in April, just a couple weeks ago. And the Utah League of Cities and Towns is an organization we've participated in. I don't know for how long, I didn't check that, but it's an interlocal agency that was formed under the Utah Code 11-13, and it's to permit local government units to make the most efficient use of their powers by enabling them to cooperate with other localities on a basis of mutual advantage and to provide the benefit of economy of scale. They represent 246 incorporated municipalities in the state of Utah. They're governed by a board of directors consisting of 4 officers and 12 directors. And in this audit, it basically says that this league is a ceremonial type board. The officers pretty much run the organization, but the board, they're made up of city councilmen, women, and mayors. And this is an audit that John Dougal did that was between the years of May 2012 and September of 2016, so about 4 years. And the findings of this audit, he just talks in the first, it says, when a governing body fails to provide appropriate oversight by clearly establishing authority, responsibility, and accountability through words, policies, and actions, the risk of inappropriate activity increases. As such, we have focused part of this report on the lack of adequate oversight by the ULCT Board of Directors. And as I go through this, I want to, I know there can be employees that do things wrong in an organization. But I would submit as we go through this is as much that as it is a structural problem with this organization. They haven't focused on oversight or checks and balances, at least through this period. The first point was former CFO embezzled ULCT funds by charging personal expenses to ULCT credit card. There was $4,996 for personal purchases made with a credit card through for the period of July 15 through 16. And the CFO resigned in August of 2016. They also found that through September of 2016, found 26,652 of charges that appear to be for personal purposes. These charges are similar to the ones the former CFO previously determined were personal purchases. So there was Ken Bullock, that was the director, and the CFO was, I can't remember her name. But some of the examples of these charges were $1,402 of iTunes purchases, $351 at Soma Intimates for women's apparel, $482 of spa charges, $8,437 of dining charges, $574 at the Utah State Liquor Store, $142 in charges at Devil's Daughter Bar on New Year's Eve 2014, $3,459 worth of ULCT American Express points used for personal airline travel, $219,800 of Amex points valued at approximately $1,400 used to book personal travel on last day of employment. Additionally, the former CFO's ULCT credit card contained charges for $57,261 that are questionable due to lack of receipts or documented purposes. There was $29,000 in dining charges, $1,428 at various floral shops, and $482 to Salt Lake City Corporation for parking tickets. And as you read through this audit, it talked about how the director failed to take adequate corrective action for former CFO's continuous poor performance. And it talked about there was reports that were late. There was problems with open and public meeting notices. In the 4 years of this audit, there was $722,000 in charges, or 85%, that did not have adequate documentation. The director was aware of weaknesses in ULCT's receipt submission and retention practices. Said repeated late payment of bills by the former CFO incurring additional costs. $7,159 in penalties were incurred for 79 late credit card payments. $4,921 in penalties were incurred for 3 late payroll tax payments. $19,172 in penalties were incurred for 8 late pension payments to Utah Retirement Systems. Says the director was aware that the former CFO was chronically delinquent in submitting credit card statements for review, often spanning months of delay. The director would perform a cursory review of these statements, failing to identify improper purchases. And it just goes, this report is very troubling. The director did pay back some of the things he was charging fees to a credit card, ULCT credit card. He did reimburse the ULCT for $45,857 in personal travel related charges. But then as they did the audit, there was actually $50,000 of the $57,000 of the charges for personal purposes that should have been refunded. There was $130,000 in additional charges made on the director's ULCT credit card due to the absence of receipt or clearly documented business purpose. The board failed to provide adequate oversight, and this is where it gets to the board. I serve on 3 different boards. I serve on the Happy Factory board, I serve on the Central Lyon County Water Conservancy District board, and I serve on the wastewater treatment board. And on all these boards, the very first of the meeting, we go through expenses that are paid, and we go through the financial statements and things as a board, and we look at them. And I mean, the water board every month, we go through that thoroughly. I can't imagine how a board member could miss these charges. I just can't imagine how for 4 years a board member could look at these charges and miss this stuff that's going on. And because they're more of a ceremonial board is what it called it in here. I know mayors and councilmen that are serving on that board are very busy, but there doesn't seem to be a lot of checks and balances. And so I won't keep going, but it just continues on. That the board, a lot of them knew there was, they just were derelict in their duties as far as keeping an eye on how things were going. And in this report, at the first, just to be fair, It does say, by its nature, this report focuses on exceptions, weaknesses, and problems. This focus should not be understood to mean there are not also various strengths and accomplishments. We appreciate the courtesy and assistance extended to us by the personnel of ULCT during the audit. There was also some employees of the ULCT. They're a lobbyist group that represent these cities, and there were 2 members of the full-time staff and 2 contract employees made written disclosures of entities for which they were registered lobbyists. So they were working for both things, and that's a direct conflict of interest. But yet there was no disclosure of conflicts of interest. And so basically this goes through, and this is online for anybody that wants to read it. There was also another audit done in April that came out. And when I was talking to Auditor Dougal, he said it was a miracle they even found the second audit. It was they found another secret fund that was being withheld from the board of directors' knowledge. Nobody knew about it, but the CFO and the director, and that there was money being withdrawn from that fund. And so, as elected officials, we have a duty to protect the taxpayers' dollars. And we have and we are stewards of that money. And I wanted to bring this up tonight. I would like to see us at least maybe bow out of this organization for at least a year, maybe 2, until there is a letter in here from the mayor of Kaysville, who's the president of the ULCT, and saying they've remedied all of these things. But I don't see how you can have 4 years of gross malfeasance and then fix it in a month or 2. I think that the trust has been lost. We have paid as a city, the best I can see is about $20,000, maybe towards $25,000 by the time we count hotels and per diem for council members or the mayor to go to these conferences. Yet we have a building department in Cedar City that's struggling to keep up with the demand of builders. We desperately need to hire another part-time employee to help with that department. And I would like to know what we're getting out of this. Initially I thought our insurance was tied to the ULCT, but it's not. There are lobbyists that help us out on the Hill, and I recognize they've done some good. But I think they've lost the trust. If this was a private organization that did this, they would be out of business. But with government, we just, it's okay. We'll just put in a few more checks and balances. And so, there was a letter that the mayor sent us last night from an email from Mayor Pike from St. George, and he made a he was defending the league, and he made the comment, well, they've had some problems, but I think the ULCT's grown up. That was the term to use. Have they grown up because they got caught, or I just have some questions there. So I would, we'll vote on this next week, but I would like to, I'll be making a motion next week to really evaluate our participation in this group for further.
I would like to discuss this, but I promised some friends that if they brought their small kids here to see Officer Peterson sworn in, that it wouldn't be long. Could we maybe
We can do
put a
that part
hiatus?
and then have our discussion
Yeah.
during the public comment portion, because
Yeah.
I know there are
Yeah.
individuals
I'd like
from the audience that would
These
also.
folks have some small children, and if we can do that, I think that's why they came, and if that would be possible, that'd be okay with you, Paul? Then we can talk.
Then we can get back to, but really quick before we move on, are there any other council business items? No? Okay, then we will move on to our staff comment portion with Chief Adams.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and staff. Darren Adams, Police Department. Thank you, Councilmember Rowley, for allowing us to do this early. This is Officer Peterson, and he's the newest addition to the force. He's been with us for a couple of years, previously as an animal control officer. And he tested and was selected to transfer into patrol. We're very excited about that, and I know he is. He just spent, was it 10 weeks at the police academy? 11. He knows to the day, and he's glad to be home, and I know his wife is, and his family is as well. So I'm going to allow him an opportunity to introduce his family, and then we'll get him sworn in.
And if anyone wants to take pictures from this angle, feel free to come
Come
up.
up with.
I'll just invite my wife to come up. I will make everyone else. This is my wife, Tiara. We've been married about 3 years. The ones that look like clones of me are my family, and the ones that look like clones of her are her family. We'll keep it pretty short there. I'm really excited to start this career. I love Cedar City. I've loved serving it, so I'm excited to continue to do that. I do solemnly swear that I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Utah, that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity.
Hi, Tim.
Yeah, we'll be nice to him tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that was a crowd.
But really, it's going to be a good conversation if you want to hang.
And later, we're going to talk about the budget if you guys want to stick around for that one.
It's even more compelling. Get better.
See those little kids start to run?
No. Okay, are there any other staff comments? Of course.
Mike Phillips, Fire Department. Just wanted to make the council and staff aware of a large-scale training exercise. We're going to be doing this Friday night from 8 o'clock till probably about 2 a.m. at Home Depot. So if you see a Facebook post that Home Depot's on fire and there's hose strung in the building, it's just us playing. We're not breaking anything.
I wanted to
Don't
thank
break anything.
Mayor. I failed to thank the Parks Department for that great Arbor Day celebration yesterday. It was very nice. Wade did a great job
Yeah.
with it, and Brian Dangerfield. It was very nice. Big trees put in, and right there around that playground where it's most desperately needed. So, thank you to them and Division of Natural Resources.
Some cool looking views.
Great. Okay. Are there any other staff? Yes.
Couple short ones. This week we finished the Coal Creek flood control job, and looks pretty nice out there. We're just gonna have to wait to get the Lomar finished to have the flood zones taken off the flood map. That'll probably be close to a year for that to happen. The other thing I wanted to mention is I went to a meeting today of what they call the RTAC committee. It's a subcommittee of the planning organization that Paul and the mayor go to on transportation for the county. And we were presented with a list of projects from UDOT that are going to be paid for from the Transportation Investment Fund. And what that is UDOT is bonding for $4.4 billion to try to catch up on their backlog of projects in the state. And they're
Billion with the B as in
with
boy.
$1 billion. And there's 3 projects in St. George, and that's out of the 50 projects. That's all that's in this end of the state. But there is one project on here that's called Recreational Hotspot Projects. And we've been talking for quite a while about bike lanes up Cedar Canyon to widen the highway out up there and put bike lanes on both sides of the road. And so that's one project that we're probably going to go ahead and put in for, in cooperation with the county and the other communities to be able to utilize some of this money. And it's good money to get. It's only a 6% match on the funds that the city has to come up with in the county. And, and so we feel like that bike lane project's a good use for some of that money. So
Kit, what is St. George's secret? It can't be population, is it? Because all the legislators have a summer home down there. What they'll get a project that one sidewalk on it costs more than our whole interchange.
yeah,
What?
I remember back in Mayor Sherritt's day, probably the maddest I've ever seen him is St. George had $209 million in projects budgeted down there one year, and we had 1.5 million. But they do get a lot of projects. Of course, they've got a lot higher growth rate than us, and they're putting in a lot of
Gary
big
Esplin just
goals.
out golf all the UDOT guys, and
I don't know. I'm not a
maybe
golfer,
Bittman
so I
better
don't know how to
brush
get a
up his
golfer.
game.
Yeah, that's right.
Second.
All right.
Unbelievable.
Is there any other staff comments? No? Okay, then we will move to our public agenda with our public comment portion and return back to our discussion of the league.
So it's discuss. Oh,
Do you want public comment now, or do you want that, or discussion with the council?
Would you like to add anything before we have?
yeah. I
Okay.
think so.
Fred, before you start, Don Ipson said there's two kind of people, one that live in Washington County and those that are going to, so. That's the answer to your question.
That may
That's how
be
he
the
gets it.
answer.
That's funny.
Whether they Utah League has cleaned up their situation or not, to me is a little beside the point. In this matter, I used to go to the Utah Leagues when I was mayor in Santa Clara, and I remember Peter Vidmar did a little thing on his balance beam thing once, and a couple of things like that. But it was more, we're going up there to be entertained. That there were some workshops, but they did not seem to apply to a city my size. Came here, I went to one in St. George. David Church spoke again, basically gave the same thing he had given 8 years earlier, which is just absolute quality things. But I think a lot of that same information resides in the heads of Mr. Bittman through his experience over the years with the city. And so I just wonder the amount of money that we're putting in there, if it were put towards new sidewalks or a new part-time city inspector or something for a couple of years, if it might not be, take a couple of years, see if we can live without the league, see if they can truly prove to us that they have taken care of these deeply foundational issues, and just take a break from it for a while and use that money to do some other things. You know, I'm on the Cedar Arts Council, and we sit there, these folks who want to start a little thing. It's a little incubator for artists. We're sitting there trying to decide if we should give $250 to this person or just $100. And I see $20,000 for a couple of years could do wonders if we even just gave them $1,000 of that. I think it would have a more deeply personal impact on the people of this city than me sitting at a banquet in Salt Lake. That's my feeling on it.
Can I react to that?
Absolutely.
As a newbie, I think the League of Cities, their training to start and the two conferences I've attended have been very meaningful for me. And maybe a year from now, that won't be the case and it'll seem repetitive. But that was a great start for me. And the thing that I most appreciated about what I've seen them do this year is their what they do during the legislative session and the updates that they provided to me constantly during that session. And they're running interference for towns and cities in a way that I'll let these two gentlemen respond to that. But I think there's great value in that for our city, and I wouldn't want us to be excluded from those benefits. So we really need to define what we're getting for, and that we're getting bang for the buck.
Yeah.
But I
And like I said, for training, I think these two gentlemen here could take 80% of that load and train our officials. I think Mr. Bittman actually did that for some of our new planning commission people on one occasion. That's why I referred to him instead of Tyler.
But for us to have a voice and Moab to have a voice, and
Okay.
Perry,
But do we, or do the big cities get the stronger lobbying efforts?
we're all represent. All
Yeah.
the small cities are represented. Not all the cities, but
Right.
small cities are represented on that board. I would respond to the findings in the audit. Being an auditor, I understand that when you cut loose and do an audit, you have to look for under every rock and for all the problems. And I think Mr. Dougal's office has done a very thorough job with that audit, and acknowledge that the audit paints a pretty poor picture of financial management of the league. Okay. But that's why we do audits, is to hold people accountable, and then to make sure that there are internal controls that are implemented to improve the systems. And I think that will be the result of the audit. But anyway, those are just a couple of observations. Maybe between now and next week, we can really quantify what we're getting out of this and feel comfortable with it.
And just quickly, to not belabor the point, I could about say ditto for what Craig just said. As a new council member, I found it very valuable training. And I think at the cost that we spend for that membership, the two conferences that I've attended, I felt like the workshops were very beneficial and learned a lot from them. Got all the legislature update this year and whatnot to know what was affecting us. And I guess I would just say I kind of subscribe to the ready, aim, fire, like not ready, fire, aim concept. I don't think, my opinion right now is that they had some problems, but our understanding, we haven't read them yet or been provided, but they've redone all of their policies, all of their controls for the financial controls and whatnot. I think we need to give them a chance to let us see, and over this next week, get the information and review that. But right now, I wouldn't. I'm not inclined to say to jump
like
out
there
of
were
it.
things that you got there that you have actually put into place here. You brought it back and it became a benefit to the city.
I think it did because of my knowledge that I gained there.
And I would add that I made connections that will help me fill my responsibility. It's a networking opportunity. I view those conferences kind of like how you would view a membership in the Chamber of Commerce. You only get out of it what you put into it. And,
Right.
and so that's just, like I say, one man's opinion. But
Right. Personally, I haven't attended any of the entertainment because that's not what I've gone for.
Yeah.
But I've gone to the workshops and I found them very beneficial. So
Yeah, and
my take on it.
I agree with them. I'm the old timer on the council, but when I was first elected, the training that we received, being, green to this type of position, coming from, as a citizen of Cedar City, I felt like the training was invaluable to hear from the people that had been around and talk with other leaders from other cities that, had been in office for a while. Some of them knew. I liked rubbing shoulders with somebody from a city of 200 as opposed to, our city, even at 30,000 and, and even to, to the big cities. But I think it's like Craig said, you get out of it what you put into it. And if you go in there with the right attitude, you're looking for things that would benefit your city. It implants ideas
But I'm
in the
asking
back of
you
your
guys, you've
head.
never said.
Excuse me, can you let me finish?
I'm
first?
sorry.
Then I'll let you talk. That you can input ideas in your head that may come up later at a given time to help on a respective committee that we serve on. Maybe we don't serve on that exact committee at this point in time, but down the road we may. And I think that's where the value comes in. And then in general, I just wanted to say from several experiences, and not getting into any details because we experienced some in our city, but a lot of times personal misuse of funds based on credit cards, as we've experienced, is, that's just, do we look at the whole organization as being bad because one individual has soured that? Do we judge the whole organization based on one individual or two?
So Ron, have you come to this city council and given us anything you've gotten there at this table, $20,000 worth of advice? Have you ever told us anything that you've gained that we couldn't have gotten from Bittman, that has benefited these people $20,000 worth?
Let's say 16,000 because that's the base
That's-
amount. That's what we pay the
Well,
league every year,
okay.
16,000.
16.5, and then there's the registration fees.
Well,
It's
yeah,
about
if we
20.
go.
So we multiply that by
And
7. So it's
I've
even
not
more.
attended the last 3 years, so I haven't cost the city
Okay.
any money for a
All right.
convention. So
I can give you a
Anyway.
couple of things. We've done stuff with trails that relate to grants and information that we've gotten from, at least that I've gotten from some of the conference workshops related to state grants that were available, tourism things, the legislative part, even the wildland fire legislation that came through last year. I'll let Evan talk about that. Or Senator Vickers, sorry. The league was really instrumental in that and worked directly with our city, with Chief Phillips. He had lots of meetings. So ones like that,
The league itself. It wasn't the league
Yeah.
just happening to do something, that it was for our city.
it was a number of it actually, they asked our opinion on it. I was on more calls and more emails back and forth related to exactly how that would impact our city, our county, how they could work together on that legislation.
And I say 20,000, Ron, because that's the dues and then what it costs to send all the folks that go.
well, if
In a
they
year.
go, yes.
So,
Yeah, well, that's
don't
the
pay if you
actual,
don't go.
that's
But not
the actual
everybody
cost.
goes every year.
Yeah,
That was
that's
my
how
point.
much
but
it
I want
costs
the
for who-
public to know the real numbers.
Okay.
16,000 is the membership.
500, 16,500.
Depending on who goes, yes, there's additional
We
cost
can
for
do-
per diem.
$4,000 more.
That's all I want. I want
The-
the right numbers. out
okay,
there.
Go
we
through
will let,
Ron,
if
you
there
want.
are
I've already looked at it.
public individuals, we'll let these two speak on it because I know they're here for that.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. And let me first say, I'm not here to defend.
But you
the
also
league.
have to say your name.
My name is Evan
Thanks.
Vickers. I former
Senator
member of this body and serve in the state senate. So I'm not here to defend the league. I'm just here to provide some information. The mayor asked me to give some information. So let me give you some additional information on the audit, and then I'll give you some additional information. You guys, and then you can use that to make your decision. And I trust you. You're 5 good people, and you'll make good decisions. So. On the audit, I actually have a copy of the audit here with me. I read the audit in depth. I talked to the acting director and the attorney with the league and discussed the audit with them. And then I also talked to Auditor Dougal today and visited with him about the audit as well. So let me give you some additional information. The Lynn Pace, who is with a city in Salt Lake City, was the director or chairman of the board of directors of the league. And a couple of years ago, he started to looking at some potential improprieties. So he started trying to do some cleanup work. And then Mayor Hyatt, who is the current board chair, has continued on with that. The league actually hired an outside firm to do some auditing on credit card purchases because they felt like there were some challenges there. When they got into it, they realized it probably went a little deeper than they wanted to. So they actually went to John Dougal and said, hey, I think we need to have an additional state audit look at this. And so that's where the audits came from. In that process, and Paul, you outlined the improprieties about credit card purchases and a lot of it. Now, you mentioned a lot of dollars. Now, not all those dollars were lost. Those dollars.
I brought that up.
Yeah.
And
And
the
the
$44,000 was paid back, but 57. So the difference between those two.
So there's 3 portions of money that was identified that was lost. 2 of the portions had to do with Ken Bullock. One of those portions, both of those portions have actually been paid back. He paid some back on his own, and then the league actually garnished his wages to pull the balance back. Now, there was some money that was stolen, quite frankly, by Michelle Riley, who is the CFO. And that money has not been paid back, according to John, but the league is in the process of recouping that money from her. So there's going through a legal process to get that money back. In the meantime, they identified the issues that they need to identify. They've taken the corrective action. Then, you mentioned that, I don't know what's the right term. I think you use secret. That's fair to say that. So
it was hidden. The
yeah.
funds were hidden from the board. So
Yeah.
this fund was, this trust fund.
Let me tell you what that trust fund was. So, because it actually occurred when I was on the city council back in the 90s. And I vaguely remember, and what it was set up to help cities save money. And I remember Cedar City participated in it. There's a number of all cities participated in it and did save significant money through it. But through the process, you can see it was supposed to have gone away in 2012. It didn't. And quite frankly, that was wrong. And, I'm really glad the audit picked up on that. And that's where a lot of the things that have hit the paper have really talked about is that particular fund. Now, obviously and that was separate and out of purview of the board. So, it's hard to blame the board for that, because it really was hidden from them. It was out of their purview. So take it for what that's worth. That has been corrected. That fund and all that money, which was deemed to be public money because, as you mentioned, it's a public utility, the league is, that money has come back into the league and back into the league fund. So just to sum up, when I asked the representatives from the league and I asked John, I asked them the same questions. I got the same answers. So, that, and then I asked John this question. I said, and John and I are good friends. We served in the House together, and I do consider him a good friend and a good colleague. And I think he's done a wonderful job as an auditor, quite frankly. In fact, the joke was nobody, and this is an actual fact, before John was elected to be the state auditor, there was only about 10 people in the legislature that even knew the name of the current state auditor. Since John has been elected to the state auditor, everybody knows who John Dougal is, Frugal Dougal. So, but anyway, I asked him the question. I said, John, tell me, do you have any red flags or any concerns about the league going forward? And he said, no. He said they've been completely compliant. I'm completely happy with the steps they've taken, the policy they put in place. I have no reservations. So take that for what it's worth. That's just information. You use it. You make your decision. Now, then maybe some additional information that I can give you, an opinion or my experience, I guess, then you can use that. And because you're asking the question, is it worth it? So, that's a decision you'll need to make. But from a council perspective, when I was on the council, Joe Melling at the time and I were involved with the Legislative Action Committee, and we traveled to Salt Lake quite often and involved with the league, and there was an awful lot of interaction on legislation, and there continues to be. So from a legislative perspective, I see things that go on. There are training. Obviously, there's training for staff. There's training for council members, and that goes on all the time. And that's constant turnover. Anytime you get new people coming in, you have to continue to do that, and that's why some of it seems repetitive. But from a legislative standpoint, there are certain lobbying groups that we as legislators get to know, and we get to know all of them. and certain ones you get to where you can trust. I've always felt like that I could trust what I got from the league. They've always provided me valuable information. They give me the information I needed to know. They've actually worked with me. When we talked about the wildland fire issue, that was a process of policy change, significant policy change in the state, significant in the fact that it's different than anything else in the country, and other states are now looking at us as a model. That would have never happened without the league. The league actually took the lead a year and a half ago, and Chief Phillips can I think would vouch for this, but there was 50 plus work group meetings that were held with the league. There was members of the league that participated in those groups, and then that was brought back to the policy committee and back through the league, and they worked with me significantly on that. So for what it's worth, on that one piece of the legislation, they were invaluable to me. There's probably anywhere from half a dozen to 20 issues that come up every year in the legislature that deal with cities and towns. And also sometimes they overlap with counties, sometimes they don't. And so those two organizations, UAC, Utah Association of Counties, and the league, Utah League of Cities and Towns, we do rely on those a lot. So for what it's worth, on a legislative purview, extremely valuable. Just to kind of give you an idea, I probably had one-on-one conversations with the lobbyists from the league 30 to 40 times during the session, all about specific pieces of legislation, getting information, going back. So take for that for what it's worth. And I'll be glad to answer any questions. Like I say, I'm not defending them. I'm just trying to give you some additional information, both on the audit side, maybe a perspective side.
I appreciate that. I have a question. Because the bigger cities probably pay larger dues than smaller cities, correct?
Mhm.
Is it based on population?
Yeah.
So have you ever had an instance where there was a legislation that maybe went against what we wanted in Cedar City that affected us? Obviously, would they favor the cities that pay the higher dues? Have you ever seen that? Or
No, I've seen situations where there are some cities, larger cities, that actually hire outside lobbyists. On top of that, they'll pay $50,000 to $100,000 for outside lobbyists, and I've seen them do that in trying to get site locations for big industrial projects and certain things like that. And from time to time, they will be counter to what maybe other cities want. But the league, I've never seen the league take a position that's counter, that favors like Salt Lake City versus Cedar City or St. George, something like that. I can't remember one. I don't know if John can, but so no, they've always been pretty careful with that, at least with me.
Well, I respect your opinion, Senator. I think whether we vote to bail on them or to stay, I think this has been a valuable exercise. But the public has a right to know.
Yeah,
It's their
sure,
tax dollars.
absolutely.
And
Yeah.
they have a right to know what's going on. I mean, there was one here that there was one point here, ULCT failed to close credit card accounts upon employee termination. We identified 5 open credit card accounts for individuals who were no longer employed by ULCT. Some of these individuals had not been employed by ULCT for up to 6 years. I can't imagine as a board member, the water board, looking at that every month. We look at those in depth. Paul he does a great job. They highlight the bills from the former month. We approve them. We look at them. I hope that this board turns from ceremonial to doing some oversight.
Yeah, well, anytime, I can tell you from experience, because I've seen this happen over and over again. Anytime there's a state audit done, either by the legislative audit or by the state auditor, it's like the tube before to the side of your head. You get your attention. And, so like I said, the conversations I've had with both entities, it appears that that is transpiring, that's taking the case. So anyway, I don't know if there's any other questions. Yeah.
How much was actually in that trust fund?
I don't know. I would have to go back and look. I apologize. I don't have that with me.
Never
It's
see a
it's in one of
dollar
Okay.
one of the audit pages.
One of the audits, it started over $1 million.
1.3 million, 1,331,000 at one point. In October 31st of 16, they held approximately 530,000.
Yeah.
Trying to think.
And I have to tell you, I really liked Ken Bullock as a person. I thought he added great value to the league. I was really disappointed in him when I saw that those things transpired and took place. Quite frankly, I really was. I don't know what else to say. I was disappointed and disheartened to see that it was the case.
Did you want to?
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. I'm Representative John Westwood. I would echo what Evan has said. I appreciate this coming forward. We were advised of this while we were in session, what was going on, and I think our auditor, Dougal, does a very good job. He does a very good job, and he's very thorough. He's very thorough, and as Senator said, once you've gone through an audit with Dougal and his team, you've been through a very thorough audit, and they ordered another audit on top of this too, and so they were concerned. I can tell you from my perspective, I rely. Senator said 30 times. It's probably more than that too, that we would contact them. They're very responsive. They're very helpful to us for me in educating me on different issues, but also in directly answering my questions and helping us with legislation. So I think they've been very responsive. Our training here has been good. That doesn't justify in them not looking at their statements. Gosh, they've got to do a better job there. So I would think if depending on what you decide, and I respect your opinions, I think a letter of concern to be sent to the league or to let them know what transpired and the essence of the discussion here tonight would be very helpful to them in moving forward. But I can tell you that Cameron Deal is very responsive to us and very helpful to me. The problems that he informs me have been addressed and taken care of, and that's what we hire auditors for. And going forward, I hope it is taken care of because they represent cities. I have not found them to ever represent or give credence more to a larger city. Not saying that larger cities don't have lobbyists that come in by the numbers to them for different issues. So the league, I think, does a very good job. That's all I'll say.
So
Yes.
let's just take one issue that's kind of coming up right now, the Airbnb issue.
Yes.
I know that some of the bigger cities are pushing to control Airbnb and others, smaller ones are not. So how do you see that playing out with the league where there's opposing viewpoints?
That's going to be an interesting, discussion for them. I know they've been very responsive in listening to all the cities. How that'll play out, I don't know. I honestly think, for me, that's a local issue, and it should be addressed locally by the cities involved. And that's the league's position.
Basically said, we want the cities to be able to make that choice.
They're not going to lobby too hard.
I've never seen them.
They shouldn't.
And I don't think even the cities that would prefer not to, or to allow them fully, that they just, all they're saying is let the city make that choice.
Yeah.
That was one issue I could think of.
And I think that's appropriate, and I hope they'll support that, which they have.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
for the
you.
information.
All right.
Oh, these are duplicated here.
Hello, my name is Brad Green.
19,470.
We have an office in the Philippines at my company. And recently, we had an employee that was caught in some very severe impropriety. And they sent an email to the owners of our company trying to essentially frame another employee to get them fired, which that other employee was fired until we discovered what had really happened. And as the cards have flown, or the cards have been dealt, our manager in the Philippines is adamant that we keep that employee because she is very productive and she makes everybody else's job easier. and everybody likes having her around. And yet here we have this impropriety that continues to haunt us, and it continues to make managing an office in a remote location very, very difficult for the owners. And the difficulty was that the order was given by the owners, by the board, to let this employee go. And the manager resisted. And all of the other employees resisted. And we had what in the Navy would maybe be called a mutiny. At which point we're stuck with the problem. If we give in and say, okay, well, she can stay, now every managerial question that comes up will be questioned by everybody. And we will be managing by democracy when the executive has that authority. And I tell that story because I see some relation to this event. There are people that love the Utah League of Cities and Towns. I talked to Rob Dodson with Phoenix City today. He loves it. He thinks that they have no problems with it. As a member of the public, one that pays particular attention, more probably than the majority of the area, it's difficult for me because I see some benefit that some are claiming that happens. However, the challenge that I have is that the public places their trust in you, the representatives, and we expect you to do our bidding. And we don't, the nature of representative government is such that we don't have to give explicit consent for everything that you do. We have to trust you. And when something like this happens with, for all intents and purposes, a contractor that you've hired, it makes the public question your decision-making paradigm that allowed you to get in business with such a contractor that could violate the trust of the public so badly. These kind of organizations are scary to me as a member of the public because I have no way to hold them accountable. Very little way. The only way I have is to hold you accountable as representatives and hope that whoever replaces you gets the picture. That's a very long process. This secret fund, the second audit pointed out is huge. I mean, we talk 16,000 a year from the city, 20,000 over a couple of years. It takes a lot of cities contributing those thousands of dollars to add up to 1.3 million in 2009. And where did the money go between 2009 and 2016? Because it seems like they're down about $800,000. Where's the accountability? As for the lobbying efforts, government lobbying government with public money scares the hell out of me. Every time I've looked at it, maybe not every time, the majority of times I've looked at it, they're very antithetical to personal liberty. It's things that the government now gets to do that the people don't get to decide for themselves. The Airbnb issue, while the representative said that it was an issue specifically about whether it should be handled at the local level or the state level, that's the point. Right now, there's lobbyists on the other side saying the state should do it because the cities are going to take that power from the individuals. It's a property rights issue, in my opinion. That's the argument. These lobbying groups that are funded by government for government are the largest, most influential lobbying groups across the country today. They have more power over the legislative powers than do the citizens. The entire purpose of government, the only reason why it is moral to exist, is to protect the freedoms of the individuals. This organization has lost my trust as an organization that is likely to protect the freedom of the individuals. And I, with any energy that I have, any kind of persuasion that I would have over the council to make this decision, I dissent on the concept that it is okay to let this cancer continue to exist unpunished. My employee in the Philippines has to be severely disciplined for her fraud. And I think this organization also needs to be disciplined in some way that is very significant. And I think the easiest thing the city could do is withdraw for a time until checks can be put into place to ensure that it is actually doing its job properly and morally. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brad.
Mayor, to clarify, from April 2016 to February 2017, we spent $19,470 on the league. I apologize for rounding up to 20 instead of down to 19.
But that wasn't membership. That's what Ron was.
19,470.
I
What's
would
that?
expect more from our math teacher.
Yeah, well,
Did you use Go Math?
I did.
Right on.
There.
What did you say, Terry?
Well, I think Ron was just pointing out that the membership dues were 16,000.
Yeah,
And
but
the
I
rest
was,
was,
in my mind, I was including all of the other,
Conferences and-
Yeah, and I just wanted to make the,
Right.
clear the difference
Just the-
between.
but
That
it
doesn't
is,
include,
but
that
it's,
doesn't include hotels and travel either, so it'll be well
No.
over 20.
No, it doesn't.
yeah.
No.
That's why I was stating what the base was.
Yeah, the base is that, but the money we spend going up to those things, it comes in roughly in the $20,000 range. That's where I was getting my number.
You don't give him a hard time every once in a while.
I'm Blaine Nay, resident of Cedar City. This corruption, I guess you'd call it, that's been disclosed is a serious problem, but I assume that would be a transient problem. But I think our bigger problem is we elected you people to represent us, not the league. We elected state legislators to represent us, not the league. I would like our elected representatives to represent us, to do our lobbying for us, and for us as individuals to do our lobbying with the legislature and the city council, county commission. I don't see a need for this extra layer of bureaucracy to suck off some of our tax money and do the lobbying for us. It's us and our elected representatives should be doing the lobbying.
Thank you.
I have a statement I was asked to read by Keith Segmiller sent this. He couldn't be to the meeting. He said, "This is egregious malfeasance on several levels over many years. Where's the outrage? Where's the prosecution? Yes, extricate us. Give Dougal an award of some kind and don't re-up unless and until an annual audit shows full correction and benefits commensurate with our expenses." That was from Keith Segmiller.
All right. Are there any other comments from the council or anyone else related to this item? No? Okay. Then this will go on our action agenda for next week. Perfect. Now, are there any other public comments related to anything else, since that is the portion?
Mayor, I forgot one thing. I'm sorry. We talked about $3,500 contribution towards the recharge effort we're doing with Phil Smith.
Yes.
Commissioner Brinkerhoff reached out to the Iron County School, Shannon Delaney, and also SUU. They've been willing to contribute $2,500 each towards that project. So we've got $2,500 from those two entities, from the district, from the county, and from the city. So I would recommend we lower our contribution from 35 that we talked about to 25. I would recommend we give the money to the district. So it's a district project. We'll have about $2,500 excess money. And I would hope we could just use that to earmark towards, we've got lots of other recharge projects going to earmark that towards those. So that's something I wanted to bring up.
Hey, so Phil came in yesterday afternoon and we talked for, 30 minutes or so. That was part of the discussion, was that $10,000.
Okay.
Can you coordinate with him on who to send an invoice to?
Sure.
Okay, because when he and I talked yesterday, it was a little different, and I didn't know the other piece of the
If everybody's okay,
puzzle.
I'll just have them send that to the district. Does that sound good to everybody? That invoice, his $10,000 invoice to the district.
And then
That's
So I'll pay the district and
Then the
will pay
district
10.
needs to invoice.
yeah, and I'll
us.
call Paul Monroe and have him invoice us. That's fine. Yeah,
I like, you're right. Okay, thanks.
thanks.
We found a new pit. It's beautiful.
is this the Schmidt pit?
The Schmidt pit.
Schmidt pit.
No.
And it's not as big. Can't put as many cats in it.
Clarification, what district are you referring to?
The water district,
Water
sorry.
district, oh.
Yeah, CWCD, sorry.
Okay.
All right. Are there any other public comments? No? Okay, then we will move on to our business agenda with our public portion first. Item number 1. Thank you.
The last comment was made by Tom Jett. He failed to identify himself.
I didn't even make you come up to the microphone. This is
That was your mulligan for the next 5 years.
basically, keep that one in the back of your mind. All right, item number 1, second public hearing to discuss the project determined to be applied for in the CDBG Small City Program for program year 2017. Is there anything you'd like to add? But we'll still make you anyway.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll add my part. Are you gonna?
I'll do my part, but
Okay.
should we do my part first?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. This is a public hearing. Our second public hearing to allow all citizens to provide input concerning the project that was awarded under the 2017 Community Development Block Grant Program. By the way, this is verbatim what I have to read, so in case you wondered. City has amended its capital investment plan and decided to apply for funds on behalf of the Cedar City Housing Authority low-income housing in the Cedar City or Iron County area. And we will now open our public hearing, and there you go. Your turn. You just have to state your name.
Okay. My name is Heidi Miller. Hello again. So we submitted an application and we were successful in our application in our rating and ranking at the 5-County Association of Governments. We requested $300,000 over a 2-year time frame, and we will purchase low-income housing. Right, to be occupied by eligible low-income families or individuals.
The council have any questions for?
How do they qualify? There's like 3 qualifications maybe.
I don't understand the question. You mean for the house to live in the
Those to
housing?
live
To
in the
live in the
house.
house.
So we do income verifications.
Do you have a number
Yes, it changes, and it depends
by
on how many
kids
families
you have?
Right. So we target families at 50% of the average median income, which perhaps is easier, but we can assist people as high as 80%
The
of the
median income of the
average-
community
of the
or of the
average
nation?
median income based on family size.
Of the community or the nation?
Community, Iron County.
Oh, Iron County.
And those are given by the Department of Housing and Urban Development.
So are there some folks who do they pay a little bit of rent on those, or is it completely rent free?
Are you talking specifically about these units that we
Or
would build?
any of the?
Well, they're all different.
Okay.
So it depends. Some units, if they're tax credit units, then they come in blocks. So everybody earning between 10,000 and 20,000 pays 300, and everybody between 20,000 and 30,000 pays 400.
Okay.
Or there's what they call rental assistance on units, which is for our very lowest of income, usually at or below the poverty line, below 30% of the average median based on a certain family size. And then they pay 30% of their adjusted income. So unit 1 could pay $100, unit 2 could pay $400, even though they're the same apartment. But it just depends on these units. We haven't picked them out because it's government money, and you all know how that works. We can't identify or select a location until it is environmentally cleared. So it's kind of weird. We want to buy low-income housing, but I can't tell you where it is or what it is until we identify a few and get an environmental clearance on all of those. And then if we need match funding, so say we found 6 units for $500,000, then we would need other funding to put with those, and the other funding may include rental assistance. So their rent may be different for apartment, or it may include tax credit funding or Olene Walker funding, which would bring the income targeting down. So I can't tell you what they would pay in rent at this point. Does that make sense?
In other words, you have a lot of school teachers. No.
No, we don't have any, in fact.
What's that?
Yeah, it really is kind of sad that actually school teachers in this county are some of the better paid folks than a lot. So
Yeah, we don't have any. We own over 100 units, and we have 139 vouchers at the Housing Authority, which is where they take a voucher from the Housing Authority and they go out into the community. So we do prior landlord reference checks, criminal background screening, and income verifications through a third party. So
Thank
it's
you.
how we qualify people.
Was that
the right answer for the question? I mean, was it?
I was just curious. I'm not trying to get anything done here. Just
No, did it answer though?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are curious, and it's hard to, because we do a lot of types of assistance. Some assistance is based on the person. So as they move from unit to unit, our HUD vouchers can go with them. They can even purchase homes if they've been on our program for a year. So those vouchers go with them, which are great. And then we have unit-based assistance, which means as the tenants come and go, that particular apartment is subsidized. So when they move, they're responsible for the rent in the new place. So there's a lot of options.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions for me?
Congratulations on landing that funding. That's-
Oh, thanks.
that's
It's
good.
huge.
I don't want to ask what St. George got.
They're not in our group anymore.
Oh,
They're
okay,
so
that's
big that they get to scrape theirs right off the top and just keep it. So we're in with all of the smaller communities.
So this is the end of the approval process then tonight, so you can go start looking for
So,
property or-
now the state has to clear us. So we apply and they make sure you're eligible and that you have your city's support and the community doesn't have. So if I said I was going to build, I don't know, something crazy, a bomb building factory on Main Street or whatever that the public has an uproar, then they want to know that. So we disclose all of that. We do a pre-application, a pre-public hearing. And then if your project is what you say you're going to do, then they allow you onto the second step. So now they will ask me a lot of the questions that Councilmember Rowley did about what we're going to do and how we income target and do we verify it and have we had any compliance issues with HUD money before and that kind of stuff. And so they will technically clear us to do that and then move forward with the planning and identification process. So,
all right, good job.
Thanks.
All right. Where this is a public hearing that's open, if there's anyone that would like to address the council on this issue. All right, seeing no one, we will close the public hearing and move this on to, you good with that on the consent agenda? Perfect. All right, item number 2, request for a single event permit for the Alex Horseshoe Tournament to be held on June 10th, 2017.
Hello, I'm Candace Howes with the Elks Lodge, and for those that don't know, this is our fundraising to get money to buy shoes. Last year we did, I think, 100 pairs of shoes for Shop with a Cop, plus I think 8 for the Crisis Center and a few other for people in town that asked for help. So this is just our fundraising, so if you guys are okay with it.
Shoes for shoes.
All right. Do you have any questions, concerns? Okay,
Do you have a
this-
nice, clear history with this event?
Yeah, for a couple years now.
Okay.
I just had a question because the police department hadn't approved the copy that we got. Did the beer license part of it comply with what needs to be where it's kind of not in an enclosed area that I'm used to seeing? So,
Yeah, Chief Adams Police Department. I got that from Renan a little bit late, and so we did have that signed.
okay.
It's been approved.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Thanks.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you.
We good with this going on consent?
Yep.
Thank you so much. All right, item number 3, public hearing to consider disposal of city property located south of the Home Depot for the VA cemetery.
Is that a hill?
It is.
It is.
It's beautiful.
Yes.
It is, yeah. It's,
They put- if they put grass on
gently
that,
sloping side hill. It
Be
does have about 2 acres of more steep slope on it that they don't know if they can build on that, but they still like it to protect their
I'm not sure it'll be good for older fellows.
Where are they going to put
Facility.
Mr. Hall?
But let's not bury people while they're still alive.
Pick your spot, Doug.
I find it interesting that the cemetery is right behind the state.
Well, see?
Call them like you see them.
Efficiency.
Does this mean that we've been chosen or is this still no kidding?
That's awesome.
We've been working, I mean, how long ago was it when we first talked? It was a couple of years ago, and
at least. Yeah.
then this site, we went and drove around with them. I mean, it's been
Year and a
within
half at least.
I think there's a law,
August, yeah.
a Home Depot and a liquor store.
I read the minutes of the planning commission, and I know there was a concern about future development around that. I just wanted to say that I grew up in Moab, right next to a cemetery, and people used to always ask my dad, "Doesn't that bother you living by a cemetery?" He said, "They're the best neighbors I've ever had."
Quietest.
Quietest, yeah.
And any VA cemetery that you've ever seen, they are
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
pristine the way they're taken care of.
It'll be awesome.
So,
So where's
Oh,
the access
public
and
hearing.
whatnot to the property then? What?
It'll be up this service road that we use to service our tanks and our
Oh,
water
okay.
line. Sure, they'll want to do some improvements to that road to get a hard
Do
surface
we own
on it.
everything north of that?
Well,
I mean, that road is not on our property?
it is on our property up through there. We
So-
own basically everything between here and the
So
Providence Center.
they don't want to like get that in as part of the deal, huh? They just want that piece.
They haven't mentioned anything,
Okay.
About that. They did look at access on it, and we told them they could use that road for access.
Okay.
all right.
Good.
So, can this go on the consent agenda?
This is supposed to be a
Oh, this is a
public
public
hearing,
hearing.
isn't it?
Woohoo! Hey, thanks for that. All right, we'll now open the public hearing on this item.
I'm Blaine Nay again. I'm a veteran. I've been hearing stories about the cemetery here, and I guess Ivan's got our retirement home. I support this idea. I would really like to have
Be
a place I can call home when I'm dead.
great thing. Good. Thank you.
All right, is there?
You okay with this, Doug?
I'm not gonna die.
I was.
Robbie Mitchell.
That
I just
wasn't an
want to
invitation.
let you know that there, kid, if you'll pull that back up, we do have a water line that runs right through the top of that. I don't know how to work this thing, but our water line from that tank comes down through here and cuts that corner. So we are going to have an easement through there, and they're not going to be able to you bury people 6 feet deep. That's going to interfere with our water line. So I just want to put that
Yeah,
out there that
probably
we
adjust
do
that
have to have an
line
easement
somehow.
through there for that water line.
And they've located that water line and put it on the minor lot subdivision that we're going to use to break off the property. So it's already shown on the subdivision.
Very nice. Yeah.
Be nice. Very, very nice.
How fun. I get a comment on somebody else's public hearing. My name is still Heidi, and I love this idea. I think it's awesome.
She didn't see her last name.
Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't. You have to come back up and say your full name.
Heidi Miller.
Hasn't changed in the last 5 minutes.
All right, is there anyone else that would like to address the council? No, then we will close our public hearing and move this on the consent agenda.
Yep.
All right, item number 4, traffic study, 1150 west from Center to 200 north.
Hi, my name is Dave Cohen, and I'm going to talk about traffic safety on our street. I was the first one in here today, and as the room filled up, it dawned on me I should have taken a Xanax, but I'll try to get through this. I'd first like to say I express my gratitude that we live in a community where we can voice our concerns. I appreciate that. I've lived in Cedar City for 20 years. I've made my life here. And my wife and I have lived on 1150 West for 13 years now. The first year as a renter, then we bought the house from Tony and Richard Hunter. And we've owned it for 12 years. We've always been aware of the speeding issue on our street. And other neighbors like us have expressed concern. And they've always told me that no one will do anything about it. I don't know if that's true or not, but I've come here to make an appeal to you to make our streets safer for the residents on it. Our street is arguably one of the busier residential streets in town. I think due to the access to 200 North both ways, from Lay Hill, the college, and from the south. We have a lot of traffic. Over the years, I've spoken to 2 Cedar City police officers about our street. I asked them if they could stake it out, and jokingly said they would fill their quota rather quickly on our street. I've even offered them my driveway, bathroom, kitchen, donuts. Can't forget that. And one officer told me that the city just simply didn't have the resources to do that. Kind of doubted that. I've seen stakeouts in other areas of town. The other officer told me he doubted my claims about how fast people were driving down the street. So I decided, it's true that I'm not an expert at judging speed. I don't know how fast exactly people are driving, but like Supreme Court Justice Potter Stewart once said about pornography regarding speed, I know it when I see it. So what I decided to do was figure out just a simple way to determine approximate speed. I first measured the distance from the south intersection by the football field. Let me see if I can. By the south end of the football field.
Here you go with the math.
To a point that's 313 feet down our road. I did this because I felt that would give me a good idea about an accurate speed that cars travel. Also, that 313 feet isn't so far from my house that I can't tell when somebody passes that line. So I measured this distance. And the next thing I did is I went over to the football field parking lot. I had my son, I measured the same distance at the parking lot, marked it. I had my son clock me at 25, 30, 35, and 40 miles an hour. I might add on a day when there were no cars or people present. And the respective times for each of these were 13.15 miles an hour for 25, 10.37 seconds for 30, and so on. So now it was just a matter of me sitting in front of my yard. I guess I should go to maybe the next slide. As you'll see, that car in the background is at the intersection, starting to travel down our street. The photo was taken by the tree that I used for my line. That's 313 feet away. So what I did on 2 random days during the summer of 2015, when I was recovering from surgery, I sat in my front yard for about 2 hours, give or take, and I observed 68 cars driving north towards 200 north. And these were the results. Let's see if I can get back to that. What I found was about 83% of the cars were indeed driving 25 miles an hour or less. But 9 cars, or about 13% of those, were traveling about 30. 7 cars were traveling around 35 miles an hour, and 2 cars were actually traveling in excess of 35 miles an hour. Now, after my trials at the football field, I was impressed by 2 things. First of all, you have to really push it to get up to 35 miles an hour and 313 feet. But secondly, I really doubt there's any way that a driver traveling at even 30 or 35 miles an hour could avoid hitting someone who was entering the roadway in between cars. I think that's the reason why there's a 25 mile an hour speed limit, although there is no sign posted as such, and I doubt that if there was a sign posted that people would adhere to it anyway. Now this was my dog Maggie. She was our dog. She was a very beautiful border collie. Last September, I got a call at work from my wife informing me that Maggie was hit and killed while wandering out on the street. A neighbor that witnessed this told me when I got home that I won't use his words because we are in public, but when I got home, he said that the driver that hit Maggie was driving very fast. The gentleman who came out from the animal shelter told me that she was probably dead before she even hit the ground. Now, losing a dog is hard, but the 2 people that motivated me to come to this meeting are my daughters, Callie in front, she's 6, and Quincy in the back, she's 3. Now, Callie and Quincy are pretty good about staying on this sidewalk. They love riding these cars. They love pushing them around, and they're pretty good at it. But kids being kids, I sometimes wonder, I worry about them. And of course, I try to make sure that I'm out there when they are, but I'm still concerned because it only takes one incident, especially when a driver's traveling at 35 or 40 miles an hour. Also, there are a lot of older people on my street. I think the mean age on our street's about 190. But a lot of times I've observed over the 13 years living there that people will be backing out of their driveway. And because there's so many cars parked along the curb, someone traveling at a high rate of speed, it would be very hard. It would be a perfect storm. And I'm surprised no one's been hit so far. So what I've come here today to do is make an appeal to you to help make our streets safer for my children and everyone else on the block. You know, I can't reasonably expect a reduction in the volume of traffic. Although if it was up to me, I'd build a wall or make our street a cul-de-sac, but you know, that's not reasonable. But I think what is reasonable is to take some kind of action to reduce the speed that people do drive on our street. I have some thoughts about how to do this, but I've come here today to ask you folks what you might be willing to do for us.
Darren Adams, Police Department. I know Dave. He probably doesn't remember, but we used to work out at the same gym, and I have a lot of respect for him and understand his concern. I would submit a couple of things that we can do. First and foremost, we do have a speed trailer that we can put up as a deterrent. It also shows speed for travelers. That won't maybe tell us facts or data, but it will certainly slow people down. Of course, extra targeted enforcement will work. We can maybe even work with KIT and look at doing an 85th percentile study to really gauge what vehicles are traveling, and then we know for a fact what the speed's like. So those are a few things that I'm sure we can do to first determine the severity and the validity of the problem, but then also to gauge from an officer's perspective what's truly going on. So,
thank you, sir. I'd like to say to that, I think whenever someone poses a problem, I think it's kind of good to think about solutions, and I thought about those things, especially the trailer. I would submit that kind of biases a driver. They'll probably tend to slow down. And of course, when that trailer goes away, so does the slower speeds. Again, this is just a theory. And I guess I should say fairly that I did try to apply the scientific method here to determine speed, but I know there's a lot of flaws in my research. If I was hoping if you'd ask me what I would propose to do, and I'll just throw it out there. My proposal in 2 words would be speed bumps. You might say you can't put speed bumps on a public road like that, but I was just over at, I think it's called Country Road Estates or something, anyway, by the Family Dollar store, and by gosh, they have speed bumps on that road. It would be a permanent solution, I think, though, to the speeders on our street. Might be a private road, but my daughters are living people that I'm trying to protect.
So do we have, excuse me, ordinance that prohibits us from doing them on public roads or?
Well, no, we just put a speed hump out in Eagle Ridge, but I probably need to point out one thing, and I'm pretty impressed with Dave's speed study. It's we're gonna have to hire him, and then speed studies around
I'm
town.
pretty expensive.
Yeah, but those numbers on that speed study don't bode well in his defense because, as the chief said, and I think I've mentioned to you before, that we set our speeds at the 85th percentile speed. His speed study showed that 83% of the cars were going 25, and there's a certain percentage going less than 25. So, you know, his speed study shows that the 85th percentile speed, which is the speed that 85% of the cars are traveling, is basically 25 miles an hour. So based on the MUTCD manual that we go by to establish speeds on streets. Well, I would question if we run our own speed study out there, whether it would show a problem with the speed limit posted. So, and we can do that. We can set up our traffic counters, which
One of those things you popped in the middle, Chief, and I'll indicate by the nod of the head for the recording, was you said increased enforcement. Was that one? Okay.
Yeah, Chief Adams again with the police department. We get these often, as you can imagine, all over town. In fact, we just had one the other day on 1400 West. I have no doubt because of the thought of a new subdivision at the bottom of the street, and we're hearing that people are traveling down that road 50 miles an hour. And not to doubt the residents' perception sometimes isn't reality, but we certainly want to give validity to their perceptions and make sure we target that. So we do get these, quite often, and when we do, we target that enforcement in that area to make sure that we either prove or disprove. Oftentimes it's difficult to be there every day at the time that they're seeing that, but we do our best.
Okay. So is it possible then, Kip, for some speed bumps, is it within the MTS BGM or whatever it's called?
Well, the MTCD. The only thing I worry about that, if somebody's driving through there and has the problems with one of those speed bumps and damages their car or somebody else, somebody's going to, an attorney or somebody's
That's sort of what you call karma, though.
and say they're going to come to us
Karma.
and show us your speed study. And
Yeah.
if we
So
show
the
them-
speed study has to come before anything else.
Yeah.
Before we can do anything. Well, we can enforce any day or the week, day or night.
What about a speed dip instead of a speed bump? Seems like the speed bump would be a problem with snowplows, wouldn't it?
Snow plows, and I was thinking garbage trucks too. They'd probably be a lot of wear and tear on some of those heavier vehicles. Snow plows with the blade down
There's a speed,
probably don't interact well with
right.
speed bumps.
Is that a speed dip on Ridge Road, or is that more for drainage? That
It's
dip?
more, we usually put those in where drainage is also benefited.
It certainly serves as
It
a
does.
speed.
It does a good job. So that dip right there, it slows people down. Slows me down.
So
Maybe we take one of these surplus police cars and just park it on the street and put
The dummy in like
That's
over
a good
Fredonia.
Yeah, Fredonia,
Move it around
Fredonia
town.
uses that
Porterville.
very effectively.
Get a mannequin of Darren Adams to put it in.
There's issues with that.
So for now, Chief, will you work to increase patrol in that? And we'll see if that helps. And
Yeah, I really appreciate your time. I know you can't do this with every street. I understand this is my street. There's a lot of streets, but whatever your policies are about 83% or 85, whatever it is, that leaves 15% that put a lot of people in peril. So I would appreciate any attention that you give this. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
for your time and
Thanks
your
for your time.
presentation tonight.
Yep, thank you.
okay. All right. Item number 5, public hearing to consider modifications to the notice requirement for a zone change.
So a few weeks ago, Councilman Rowley, in one of the comments he made, requested that the city look at giving more notice to residents before a potential zone change comes before the Planning Commission. I believe there's a citizen that got their notice like the day before.
Yeah.
So as a staff, we talked about it. We're recommending 5 days.
Yeah.
But I got a little ahead of myself, so I got to get it before the Planning Commission before I get it before the
Okay.
council. So the
Thank you
planning-
for your work, Tyler.
Yeah.
I think that'd be just perfect.
What has it been? The notice?
24 hours.
24 hours.
Okay.
And we see in the planning commission, we see a number of people that have that very comment. So I
Yeah.
think.
And they're generally fairly irritated.
Yeah. they're-
However, with all of this, we're still going to have our public hearing tonight, and then it can go back before the Planning Commission. Then it can come back.
Okay.
Okay.
So, there is anyone that would like to address the council on this issue? No. Okay, then we will close our public hearing, and it will be continued after it goes before Planning Commission. All right, item number 6, consider entering a right of first refusal agreement with Lee Grimm's concerning water rights he's attempting to purchase.
So just a little background here. Miss Gail Davis is sitting here in the back. She asked that I kind of explain what's going on. If she needs to correct me, she'll get up. So Miss Davis owns some property that's on Lund Highway. It's around 3900 West. It's just north of Smead. Approximately 10 years ago, this property was annexed into the city. This property's intent was to be used for agricultural purposes. So the city entered a first right of refusal agreement with her. So if that property was ever sold or developed, the city would have the first right to purchase those water rights. So 10 years has gone by, and Miss Davis would like to sell this property to her grandson, who intends to run it for agricultural purposes as well. It's they grow hay on the property. Without these water rights, he wouldn't be able to do that. They still want to honor this first right of refusal agreement so that if they ever chose to sell it or to develop it, then the city would have the first right to purchase that. So before the grandson goes forward and purchases this, the hope is that he has some assurance from the city that we'll enter this agreement so he can buy it for what he's intending to use it for.
So could we then roll the right of first refusal over so that we have that continuing right?
Correct.
Okay.
And he's actually already signed the agreement.
Okay.
I think the fact that it's staying in the family is an important
Yeah.
thing. It's a family legacy piece of property, and he wants to continue the family effort. And that seems perfectly fine to me.
Yeah, I don't think we want to stand in the way of a grandson being able to acquire the property. But I like the idea of the city staying in a position of right of first refusal.
All right. Are there any other comments, questions? Do you have anything you wanted to add? Okay, perfect. Then are you good with this going on the consent agenda?
Okay.
All right, we will now move to our staff portion with item number 7. Consider an agreement with Iron County granting them credit towards impact fees on property located at 55 and 67 North 200 East.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Talk right into it, Kit.
The Iron County's constructing their public safety building out behind the jail out on DL Sargent Drive. And they've had a few overruns on the project, different, a few expenses on the project. And we gave them a bill, I think it was for something like 57,000 or 51,000, can't remember, for impact fees on the project. And they're trying to scrape together some money to pay for that. I think they paid for most of that today, 39,000 or something, brought a check in for approximately 39,000 to pay that much on it. They would like to do an agreement for, this is complicated, but there's some property over here on 200 East that Sitla has for sale. And they're hoping that they can buy that property from Sitla. I guess there's an auction coming up in a couple weeks to buy that property. And the agreement basically says if they buy that property, then we'll give them credit towards their impact fees for the sewer and water connections on that property. If they don't buy the property, then within a certain time frame, they've got to bring in money to pay the balance of their impact fee. If they bought the property, they'd get the credit for those sewer and water connections that they could use towards their impact fees.
They could transfer those to this property.
Yeah.
So they.
Deaden those connections.
Okay.
They're not going to reuse those. What are they doing with the property they buy?
It's right behind the
Office
county
building, county building.
across the
So
road
they're
there.
just buying it for
County
possible
courthouse.
They want to make it into a parking lot.
Oh,
Okay.
I see.
I get it now.
And
I
we're
can
willing to do that.
figure
We can
this out.
transfer that.
Well, yeah, we do that for the university. They tear down houses and stuff, and then we keep a tally on how many impact.
And this
fees
is only for
we get.
water and sewer, not,
This is just for
not
water and
storm
sewer.
drain and blah, blah,
All
blah.
the other impact
Okay.
fees that they're paying for.
That makes sense
Okay.
finally.
Robbie's here, and he has a little concern on exactly. This is a little bit different than the way we normally do it. Robbie, do you want to just explain your concern?
He's been waiting all night.
Robbie Mitchell, Water Department. So in the contract under number 1E, it talks about, first thing it says, if and when any future development. The policy we run right now is for them to get credit for the existing connections. Those connections have to be deadened off of the main. The city standard is a 1 foot within the main. So in the agreement, it says now that it can be years down the road before they ever go in there when they decide what they're going to do with it and deaden those connections. I would like to see that changed to say, if the county gets the lots, as soon as that property is theirs, then they have to go in and deaden those connections at that point, not 20 years down the road when they decide
Right,
what they're going to
because
do
you
with it.
leave and we leave and they leave and.
Correct. In here, it says that the city's responsible to track it, but that's what I say. 20 years down the road when we're all gone, if they go to set a meter in there and there's water there, nobody's going to know that the fees have been transferred. So if anybody ever goes, if it's cut and capped and they go to turn the water on, it's not there, we dig it up and it's capped and cut, then we know for a reason that those fees have been transferred to somewhere else. So that's my only problem. I would ask that if we're going to arrange this agreement, that be written in there.
How long, just in your perfect world, how long would you give them after they bought the land to go and cut and cap them? Because I'm sure it's going to take them a little bit of time.
There's no houses, right, Paul?
There's houses there.
They're there now?
They're planning on raising the houses of what I hear, but I don't know. No, I don't think anybody's living in them.
Okay.
I would say 30 days. I just went through this with the North Elementary. They're trying to get a 2-inch meter. I made them go in there and deaden the connection that they're transferring. So they deaden that today. As soon as they pay for the meter, we will set the new meter in their connection. So I would, just a rough time frame, I would put 30 days on it myself, but that's yours and Tyler's. But
That just gives us something to start from, just a reasonable
Correct.
time to go in and shut it off.
reasonable time, but I would say we give a time frame or 30 days, or I just don't want it 20 years down the road.
Will this have to be put on a separate work meeting, this issue, or can it be related, or it's related? Can we just?
Yeah, I'll make the amendment and we can vote on it next week.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Robbie.
Thank you. So do you want that on the action agenda with the amendment on it? Okay. This is my favorite item of the night. Item number 8, consider declaring police vehicles as surplus property.
Here we go. Thanks, Mayor. Darren Adams, Police Department, just here to identify 10 of police vehicles that we've used over the last several years that are in need of being sold or transferred. I think you've got that information in front of you, but I'm happy to go down each one. We have 2 Impalas that are right around 150,000 miles. Currently, Chief Phillips is looking at those 2 to see if those could benefit his operation and transfer. We've done that in the past with an
Not going
Impala.
to take him out and light him on fire, is he?
No.
You keep an eye on him.
There you go. We have what's called P80 as a spare patrol vehicle. That one has got a lot of use and has started to experience quite a few maintenance issues. And so we want to get that one sold or transferred while it still has some valuable benefit. P74 is one that has approached nearly 100,000. As you know, that's kind of our benchmark, is 100,000 miles. Now, we try to operate within the 85 to 100,000, and some of that's based on the performance of the vehicle. If we see an increase in maintenance.
P74.
These ones, okay, so
Sorry.
we have 2 separate things.
Got 2 lists.
We're surplusing lots of getting rid
yes,
of
I
a whole
apologize.
bunch of junk. So there's one that was in the council packet, and that's what Darren's going over.
Okay.
And
So
then
this
we
is
have
probably
a
the one that you were
whole
looking at.
another
Yeah, we were
separate list.
I'll get that one when Darren's done.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Now
I want your
we're clear.
definition of old when we get there.
We do have a red Firebird that has been promised to a member of the staff, Mr. Jason Norris. I'm kidding, of course. That's an inside joke. However,
He said he'd grow a mullet and wear a sleeveless shirt and ride around town.
he referenced going back to his days in Carbon County. And so That one was one that was actually
dear me.
seized more than a decade ago, right, Keith? 15 years ago from a drug dealer in town, and we used that for dare and other things, but we haven't driven that for quite a long time. It's not efficient anymore, and we want to get that sold.
Where are these things?
We've had some on the parking garage. The third level is where we store some of those, and
Have
then
you
down
ever
at the city
driven up
shed.
there?
Oh, okay. So
There's a
that's what,
boneyard up
I did
Yeah.
walk up there the other day.
The boneyard. P79 is another one that's again high mileage that we're trying to move on. P60, 69 to 73, those are ones we've used as spares and also that we've allowed our VIPs to use. They're not ideal or reliable anymore. These are the Ford Crown Victorias. They're extremely outdated and are now far behind other vehicles in technology and power. One thing, and one of the reasons we're trying to phase out Crown Vics completely, is there's been some trouble in the past with the gas tanks rupturing, and you probably saw that in the news a few years ago. And so once we get rid of those, I believe we'll have all the Crown Victorias out. And then P82, like the others, has increased use and wear. This particular car has a lot of high engine idle time. We used that as a second canine vehicle when we implemented the second dog, which was great then because it allowed us to implement a second canine at virtually no cost. So we put a kennel in the back, and so it's got a lot of wear from the animal inside and a lot of high engine idle time because that vehicle above others has to idle to control the temperature regulation for the dog. So those are the ones. We have 10 that we'd like to declare surplus and get those either transferred or sold.
And none of these are in use and have to be replaced at this point.
These are actually ones that have been replaced long ago.
Okay.
We've just used as spares or tried to be
Yeah,
efficient
by
in
all
making
means.
the VIPs. Yeah.
So
Let's get cash.
now to the list that I set on your table.
Yeah.
We were talking to Corey
Thank you.
Childs, and he indicated that he also had a number of vehicles that he wanted to put on the surplus auction list. All of the vehicles we're going to talk about have been determined by each division head to be declared surplus because they are now costing too much money to keep and maintain, or the usage of the vehicles is way too low to keep the vehicles around any longer. And I'll just read off the vehicles. It's a 93 Ford Ranger truck, a 1990 Dodge 350, an old military wrecker. Not sure what old military wrecker means.
what
We
does
could
that
get more
mean?
clarification from Corey on that. An 86 Dodge 250, a 91 Ford F350, a 91 Chevy 1500, 2003 Ford F350, 1994 GMC 3500, 2001 Dodge 1500, 1991 Chevy 2500, 1995 Ford F150, and a 1982 Ford 2-ton. So on your list, you'll see on the very far left-hand side a code with it says PR8, PR9, S128. The letters indicate what department those vehicles are coming out of. So Parks and Recs is PR. S is streets.
Golf course.
Golf course is GC. And then Corey tracks the vehicles in each department by number. So that gives you an idea of the vehicles. And
Have to have a replacement. They're all surplus. I mean, they're unused now.
I think these are vehicles that were again, either too expensive to maintain and or not being used any longer. We want to get rid of. There are a number of replacement vehicles in the tentative budget. And there are a number of vehicles in the tentative budget that we're going to suggest that we shift around between departments to extend their lives. Once they've been replaced in one department, they can go to another department and have another career.
What's the process for?
He'll put all these. He'll put Darren's vehicles and all these on auction.
Okay.
So you
Are they
can
auctioned on our website, the city site, or an
No,
auction
they go
service?
they go to a third-party auction website.
so you can purchase any one of them
You're
that
telling
you
me
would
that
like.
soon I could own myself an old military wrecker.
Exactly.
You'd be the
We
first
could
one on
make
your
Cedar
block.
sparkle with that baby.
If you
Just
so
go to
desire.
people's houses in the night.
Wreck 'em.
But we've talked for a little while about getting more of a big fleet management program put in place where we rotate,
Yeah.
get rid of the junk that's costing a lot and get decent ones. This is a huge, huge step towards that. So,
Okay.
can this go on the consent agenda?
Yep.
There you go, Darren. Good job.
Just for education purposes, where do the funds go? Do they go back into the general fund or where does the money go?
Yeah, the enterprise fund vehicles goes back to their respective funds, and then provided they weren't funded originally by a grant or have some restriction, then yeah, we just deposit them in the general fund and they ultimately end up back in the capital improvement fund.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, item number 9, review and recommendation for animal shelter architect.
Keith's gonna do most of the presentation on this. I just want to give you a little idea of where this is going. If you don't know, this is this is over on Kitty Hawk Drive, and this is Bulldog Road. That's the proposed location for the animal shelter. We just purchased this property to the west, and we purchased this property about a year ago. So all the properties been purchased for that location. Should be plenty of room out there to do what we want to do. So,
Now, Ken, are we adding one more lane on each side over the freeway eventually then?
yes. Well, we'll not add a lane, but we'll be widening the park lanes, widening the structure, and it'll still be a 2-lane road.
How much wider are we going to make that road?
12 to 14 feet.
Total?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's additional.
Les Bittman gets better at his golf with the UDOT people.
I was going to say, there you go.
So we just went out for proposals for architects for the animal shelter, and that's what Keith's going to talk about.
Yeah, Keith Millett, Police Department. I'm kind of sad that my topic isn't as good as Darren's, but I guess we got to deal with it. Early March, we sent out the request for proposals on the design and whatnot for the new animal shelter. We got 5 responses from 5 different architects and engineering firms. And what we did is we put together a group of evaluators. We've got 7 of us. Mayor Wilson, Council Member Craig Isom, Paul Bittman, Drew Jackson, Kit Warham, Darren Adams, and myself. And as these came in, we had a scoring sheet that we kind of wanted to propose a certain amount of points for each category. And we took each one of these proposals and scored them. And then we met together as a group and compared scores. And this is the results of the scoring process. And CRSA scored the highest. And so we're going to let them know that we would request their services.
Do you want to give any information on?
Well, CRSA is a firm from Salt Lake, but they do have a satellite office in St. George, and they're going to try to be here to and introduce themselves, but I don't think they made it, or they had to leave early, one of the two. Anyhow, of all these 6 proposals that, or 5 proposals that were made, they were one that had significant experience in animal shelters, and it was pretty evident, who we should recommend.
It appears Mr. Bittman was somewhat lukewarm toward the group.
My numbers way off from everybody else's, so.
Yeah.
Everybody else had them. Everybody else had them 1 and 2.
Are we going to make sure these architects meet with Tina? Is Tina right?
Yeah.
Because when I met with her and talked to her about a lot of things, the preliminary plan we had, she was kind of, wondering why certain things were certain
Yeah.
ways. Did we get
I'm sure they'll have a programming phase for the design.
Yeah, she
that's-
should
that's
have
when
a
you'll get
very,
people
very
push that
big
in
input
groups
into
and-
it.
It's just
Get that
surprising how many
discussed.
projects I do where the architects haven't met with the end user, and we find out halfway through the job that, oh, that's not what I want. So can we make sure that happens?
Yeah, and that was part of the proposal that was appealing really with all of them, is that timely meeting and updates and collaboration. And we need to make sure we work together. Tina's been fantastic down there, but she does have somewhat of a unilateral view, and sometimes she may request things or see things differently than maybe what we see. And so we need to all come together and make sure that we're all on the same page.
Well, and
Well, actually-
sometimes, and that's true. I mean, sometimes when somebody lives with something for 35
Right.
years, they can't envision it any other way.
Right.
So it's
Sure.
good to have another perspective.
Absolutely.
These guys had some great.
Are there any
Great
additional
Good.
comments, questions? Then can it go on the consent agenda to recommend CRSA for this? Great, thank you.
And I noticed Justin Stein from JBR is here. I just didn't know if he had any questions or anything.
This needs to change. He had some very good suggestions.
Will you come up and state your name too, just so we have it for the record?
I'm Heather Stein. I'm Justin of J. Brown Ring Architecture's wife. I just wanted to make the comment that, and granted, we haven't seen the proposals, the other proposals, but we did think it did count for a lot that you had 3 of the 4 firms involved, local. We just thought that was kind of important to keep those dollars local rather than send them out to Salt Lake or Washington County. I didn't see anywhere in the proposal where that was given any weight. I just thought maybe it was worth considering.
See our, the preferred consultant up there did have their engineer for doing the site work and the parking lot and things like that. Is Watson Engineering, local engineering firm. So they did have some local involvement in that.
Tim Watson is the engineer.
Did you hear that? Okay. So are we still good with this on the consent agenda? Yes.
So was this approving the cost for them to do it, or what was
No.
the request for proposal? What actually did they?
To select the consultant,
There
and
was
then we'll negotiate the cost.
No
The
fee.
Cost
no
was
fee
not
was
part
even-
of
No
the
fee was even.
proposals.
Just their procedures and
Mm-hmm.
whatnot,
Their
how they go about it?
qualifications, mainly
Okay.
their qualifications.
All right.
Okay. Item number 10, committee appointments. So it is that time of year where our number of our city committee appointments are up. So with that, I will go through. There are some that I am still waiting to hear back from the individuals. So those names will be presented again next week. So we can have this go on an action agenda and then go through that. For the airport, Bill McVeigh and Bert Polson were both appointed to fill remaining terms of other individuals, and we would like to reappoint both of those. For Board of Adjustments, we would like to appoint Roger Thomas, Ann Powell, Phil Schmidt, and Jill Peterson. For CATS, we'd like to appoint Brody Johnson. For Cross Hollows, we'd like to appoint Rusty Aiken and Ree Zafiropoulos. For Housing, we'd like to appoint Margaret Miller and Georgia Beth Thompson. Planning Commission, Jill Peterson. The reason we said her name twice is because a member of Planning Commission also serves on the Board of Adjustments. So that's why that name's twice. For the Rap Tax Art, Randy Allen, there will be 2 more names come before you next week. And for Rap Tax Park and Rec, Mark Johnson, Randy Phillips, and Vicky Christensen. Christian, is there questions, comments? Any of those?
The folks I know are good folks.
Yeah.
And they all are really excited to be involved and serve on committees. So.
Yep.
Okay.
Could I go back to the last one again? So what they're charging is not figured into the thing before they're chosen?
No, I mean, it will be as we go through the negotiation.
But that's not how we do any other contractor. I mean.
Well, but
the-
usually you'll have the design all done. You know, on any other contractor, you got all the design all done and they know exactly what they're bidding. In this case,
Oh, you don't know what you're,
we really don't know exactly
I
what we
see.
want. And we expect them to help us decide that. And then
okay.
once we come up with that concept through the programming process,
What are all the architects charging for, what's the percentage of the building? What was the
there's
fee?
no percentage. There wasn't any cost component on this evaluation at all. We'll negotiate that as we come.
Is there some sort of a,
The question might be, what's a typical architect fee?
yeah.
I'd have to look back on some of our.
I mean, here's what I'm
Past
saying. If we choose these guys and they come and say, yeah, well, we charge 50%, what do we do then?
Well, we're not entering any contract with them until we get to the point of negotiating that fee.
Okay. But we have no idea that maybe some other group might have done it for half the price, right? I mean, do they just have some standard that is there a range that you usually can expect?
Yeah, I can look at some of our other projects that we've done in the last 4
Okay.
or 5 years and give you an idea what that is.
Well, you'll have your estimate when you get all that information anyway, right?
Yeah, well,
From you,
that's part of their responsibilities. Once they get the project designed, give us an estimate, and then we go out for bids on the construction.
Okay.
It does seem a little bit backwards.
And
Yeah.
we are
Seem a little bit backwards. to
item
me,
number 12. This is Jason's favorite time of
And
the
I've been
year.
waiting all night.
Fiscal year
for this.
2017-18 tentative budget.
2 hours in and we get Jason.
Here's Doug Hall.
And he's
got
just going
his
to walk over
popcorn.
here and hand us
Got
the
his
copies.
popcorn
And
out.
Jason Norris, Finance. Good evening, council. I know you've been excited for this portion of the meeting like we all are. It's that time of year again where we're presenting our tentative budget for fiscal year 2018. We will have formal meetings next Monday and Tuesday where department heads will come in and present portions of their budget to council and answer any questions that you have. The mayor's tentative budget is based on meetings that we've had internally and budget documents and requests that have been submitted from departments, and we've filtered that down and made some recommendations. A few major highlights of the upcoming budget proposal are that general fund tax revenues are improving and have for the last several years. We're anticipating in our projection about a $713,000 increase in tax categories, which is good. Our main focus that we want to use those increased funds on are the personnel costs for our workforce. The mayor's proposed a few full-time positions. One is a school resource officer that will be, the cost will be shared with the Iron County School District. We're recommending a parks field supervisor to be an assistant to the director, and then also a water worker 3. We are proposing a 2.5% merit increase for full-time and regular part-time employees, and also a 1% cost of living increase. We had a expensive increase in health insurance this year. Our utilization has been high, and that's been high nationally. Our proposal will be from our health insurer will be bringing to council at a future meeting, but that premium increase is 19.9%.
You can round up to 20.
I'm just, that's how the private sector likes to make the proposals sound good. So I'm passing that on. Our enterprise funds are in a positive operating position. We're continuing to address infrastructure needs. Fund balances are good. They'll allow us to do several capital projects in water and sewer, as well as I know we have some future planning for major capital infrastructure in the enterprise funds, and we'll address that also. And then we had our library refunding bond, a portion of our library bond matured, general obligation debt there, so that will come off the books. That's about $226,000, and we won't be rebonding with those funds. So I can answer any questions tonight, or we can address them next
We
week.
had a look at all of our bonds. The school district recently, I saw some chocolate nuts on the school board's desk there,
Ooh, that's a,
and that was a clue. But they ran a bunch of their bonds through and got lower rates and saved a whole bunch of money. Have we done that recently?
We did that, someone, that was done right before I arrived. They went through when rates were very low there and refunded a few bonds that were callable. They had just issued the Aquatic Center bond. It's a Build America bond, so it has a little bit of a federal subsidy that goes with it. And that one could be refinanced, but with that subsidy, it wasn't really favorable to do that. And then our other recent issues have been placed with State Bank, and those are pretty favorable rates.
So you keep an eye on that. That's, I guess, all I'm saying.
Well, actually, Zions is our financial advisor. They'll do an analysis periodically. It's an incentive for them to actually get us to refinance those bonds, and so
Banks regularly look at those too.
Okay.
So there's a lot of people that look at those.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Do we have any that are running their course in the next 3 to 5 years?
we do have a sales tax bond that's for this facility and our parking structure and our Heritage Theater. I think that matures in the
21.
next
I think it's
4 years
2021.
or so. I can get back to you on that, but.
Okay.
It's going to be a happy
And then,
day.
and then we do have we'll be making the last payment on our UDOT loan for the South Interchange. We've been paying that with C Road funds. So we have one more payment in this budget, and then that will be taking care of our share in that project.
Oh, that's good.
So that's all I have.
It is in your council packets. Would you all like a hard copy for Monday's meeting?
I did not find it in my council
It
packet.
is because it was added right before this meeting.
Okay. All right.
So
I think that will be fine.
you,
We'll save it. I'll save a tree.
so, what about, do you want a hard copy, Paul or Ron?
I'd like one.
Okay, so we have 3. Yes.
Okay.
I kind of wanted Jason to run till 9, but I will regretfully make a motion to adjourn.
No.
One more
We're not
thing.
done yet.
We still have more.
Oh,
You're,
there is something on the back.
yes. So,
I'll do my best.
okay, item number
It's in his
13.
job description.
Yeah, sorry about that. Item number 13, consider reopening the public bidding for the parcel located west of AmeriGas.
So if you recall, I think it was November, December last year, we had a representative from AmeriGas wanted to purchase that lot. There was some discussion back and forth about whether we wanted them to own that. We decided to open it up for an RFP, and then no one bid, so it was closed. I had a realtor here in town approach me last week. He has a client who wants to look at purchasing it for either a gas station, convenience store type.
Done.
Which is where Mr. Rolo
Yeah.
talked about. So
Beautiful.
with your approval, I'd like to reopen that RFP.
Do it.
Perfect.
Yep.
Let me
We'll
say,
republish it. We'll republish the RFP and
Okay.
let people take a bid.
you say one thing, Wade may can back me up or or confirm this. Brian Dangerfield said 3 part-time park employees were hired recently, and on the first day of the job, none of them showed up. We may have to be making some adjustment in what I don't know what we're paying if we're gonna, I don't know.
So, it was maybe 2 or 3 years ago, Cedar City developed a part-time wage scale just internally among staff. And the idea was to try to get, one, an idea of where we're paying folks part-time wages. 2, to try and classify similar types of jobs within a similar part-time wage. And 3, to try to control the growth of the part-time wages. We saw through the recession that some of the part-time guys were getting raises every year to come back. So we may need to take a look at that wage scale and adjust it. The economy today is different than it was when we looked at it in the first place. We are having a lot of issues hiring part-timers. When the economy's good and there's a lot of construction work around, they'll go work for private
It's actually
industry.
good news, but
Yeah, but it's hard on some of our operations.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yes. So now it's your turn.
Motion to adjourn, ma'am.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Doug's got himself a crossword puzzle to look at.